Hi. I'm really excited to follow Cindy's talk because some of the things that I'm going to share with you are about how we do that researching the real. And one of the ways that we do that is that we go out and we encounter users in the field. We encounter them where they are. So I'm going to share some of that with you. But when I start to talk about this research with folks, especially folks in our field, I get comments like, oh, I love field research. We never do that. Like, I would love to be able to do that, but we don't do enough of it. And I want to ask us why. Why don't we? And I think that there's some assumptions or myths about field research that hopefully we're going to debunk a couple of these along the way. One of the things that people say is that, well, it takes a lot of time. You can only do it early in the process. It takes a lot of money to do it. And so those are some of the common objections we hear. But we don't find that to be the case. So let me talk to you about what I mean by field study. I really like this definition by Rosenbaum and Kantner that talks about field research as a continuum from the exploratory to the structured. And where I'm setting up today is on the structured end of things. So I'm not going to talk about ethnography today. I'm going to talk about field usability testing and studies and going into the field, both with paper prototypes and interactive prototypes. So when we talk about the field, we're interested in the context of use. How do people's surroundings impact what they need out of technology? And we're very used to doing this in the home, right? We go to the home to understand how to make things better, how entertainment works in the home. We also spend a lot of time in field studies in the office, in the workplace, understanding what would help people be more productive or have them find their work more interesting. And that is the case. But for mobile, it gets much more complicated because it's not just home, and it's not just work, but it's everywhere in between. It is all of those encounters that we have along the way. And that's where our field research takes place, is along the way. So I want to share with you a picture of the fields that I go to and do research in. And this is the bus tunnel downtown Seattle. So you might look at this and say, hey, there's a bunch of folks waiting, perhaps in the cold, to go home from work. But when I look at this picture, I see participant, I see user, I see the folks that I am so excited to talk about and learn about how our products are working for them. So Sound Transit, as you may know, maybe you took Sound Transit to get here today. They run express buses, light rail, and Sounder commuter rail. And it's a large network of transit options. And they're following user-centered design and creating a lot of really great and exciting tools and services for folks in the region to get around. So we worked with them on an iterative design process to create their mobile experience. They already had a great website, and they were moving towards a mobile site. And they wanted to make sure that their trip planner was optimized for mobile. So when I say mobile, we're talking about a mobile website, not an app. And the research I want to share with you is of two studies we did, one on a paper prototype and the other on an interactive prototype, and both in the field. So our paper prototype. Our fields. So where we go to do research when we do research with Sound Transit in the field is we go to the bus. We go to the bus stops, the stations, the trains, and we ride those services because that's where our users are. So we create field-friendly prototypes to take with us in the field. And I've got our paper prototype right here. And there's a couple of elements that I want to point out to you about what you need to do when you're creating paper prototypes for the field. So we created this in Axure and then hung it together on this little ring. Some components of it is, first of all, it's portable, so it fits in one hand, just like a mobile device does. But in addition, it stores in a pocket, which was really helpful for these studies in particular, because we were out in the field. And when we go out in the field and we're riding the bus, you kind of become like a roving usability testing unit. You've got to have everything that you need on your person. And so the fact that it is really portable and you can put it in a pocket is helpful. It's also durable. It's built on thick cardstock. We knew a lot of people would be interacting with it and others like it. And so we knew it had to really stand up to that, the folks who would encounter it in the field. And finally, it's usable. These little tabs make it really easy for the researcher to flip through when people are tapping on something. So it was something that would be easy to do a quick study on and get feedback. So let me share with you by the numbers what we did in that study. And I think this is one of the first places we're debunking some of those field study myths. So we spent 2 hours in the field. We had a great team. We had 6 researchers, but we talked to 33 participants in 2 hours, which is incredible. One of the objections we also get of field studies is that, oh, you can only talk to 1 or 2 people. It's qualitative, really small sample sizes. But we would say that's not the case. We also got a great mix of, and that reflected our other research of smartphone and feature phone users. We were also creating a feature phone experience for the site, and so we had a good split there. So I want to share with you a little bit more about the second study, which was an interactive prototype. One of the things we really needed to make sure for our interactive study of our system is that we wanted people to use their devices, not our devices. We had a working system. We also thought this was a great opportunity to find any functional bugs or other problems with it, so it was important that they use their own systems. So we had to find a mobile sled, a testing sled that would help us do that. And as we went out and did research on the different options around mobile sleds for testing, we found things like this sort of Franken sled on this side of things where it was thinking, I'm not sure if any user is going to be willing to put their phone in something that is going to be required to sort of buckle it down like that. And then on the other side of things, there's very deluxe versions of these out there that are probably much more appropriate for a lab setting as opposed to a field setting. And so we kind of came up with the in-between option, something like this that is both durable and usable, but is going to stand up to the demands of the field and still allow folks to use it. So after doing research on these different options, we had found a template and created our own mobile sled, which I've also brought to show you here today, which is built out of plastic. So it's this. It's pretty simple, and it cost $40 to fabricate down at a firm here in Seattle. So let me just share with you, and my colleague Robert, who's in this picture, is the one who designed and he's here today in the audience, and he designed this sled. So I want to show a couple things about this configuration that you need to know if you're going to go this route. We wanted to use our existing technologies. We already have Moray. We already have a bunch of webcams. So we had hooked up the people's phones to our sled to a laptop using Moray. We had to flip the video to make it the right way around in the recording software. And we also had to make sure the cameras we were using had adjustable focus, because if not, then they try and zoom to the tap as opposed to keeping focus on the screen. So we had to make some technical switches there. So this was our field for this second study, which was Link Light Rail, the station down at SeaTac, where people get off the plane at the airport and come and look for ways to get downtown. We set up our little shop there. We were less of roving testing units here, and we did have a little table that was marked pretty clearly of where with Sound Transit. But as you can see, it was a highly visible location. There was lots of participants. And one thing that's really interesting and crucial is that the folks who were here were the folks that Sound Transit has the hardest time getting to come into a lab study. They're visitors. Typically on your itinerary, if you're a tourist coming to Seattle, your plan is not to attend a usability study session, right? So we had to go where they were, and they were coming to the airport, and they were coming to Link. So we set up to do the study there. So by the numbers on this study, we spent longer time in the field. We had longer sessions. We had 6 hours, 4 researchers, and we talked to 13 participants, and we got a great cross-section of the different devices that we were looking for. So I want to share with you a little bit about what we learned. And what did we learn about the design? We learned tons, and that got incorporated into the design and into the product that was eventually launched. But I want to share with you what we learned about doing field testing. So they can make recruiting easier. I talked about that at the beginning, but it really helps you. The folks that you encounter in the field, at least in our case on transit, were our users. We knew they were our users, and it made recruiting very easy because there they were. In addition, we all know that careful planning is really important for any research, but it's even more crucial in the field. You can't really run and go print off another consent form or anything like that. You have to have everything you need, and so we did have to spend some good time being prepared to go out. We also found that it was really helpful to provide different options to participants. I mean, people are living their lives out there, and they were saying, you know, we would approach them and say, hey, do you have 15 minutes to take part in a study? And they would say, oh, I'm waiting for my bus, I gotta be somewhere. So we would say, well, how about 5 minutes? So we gave them a gift card for Starbucks if they had longer, and then we had a free ticket to ride Link if they had shorter. So we were able to be flexible as our methodology and could change it on the fly. Another big important thing that we did in this study was involving our colleagues at Sound Transit in the research itself. So this is Jamie from Sound Transit. We had the team come out with us and do the research, and this was great for a number of reasons. A, they're experts on their own system and their own product, but I think more importantly, it allowed them to really understand the value of this work and go back to the technical team and the developers to advocate for why we needed the changes that we did. And finally, it allowed us to collect feedback on the broader transit experience. We learned tons about how the ticket vending machines worked or didn't. We learned a lot about Orca card readers, where you scan your card, and signage and things like that. So we learned about the cross-channel experience. So the impact of this work. We produced, or helped them produce, a very successful mobile website, and the usage of it increased 116% within a year. In addition, the organization itself is changing and has changed because of some of this work and other user-centered design efforts. It's really helping them change the way that they make their decisions about how they design technologies and how they make choices for it. So I'm hoping that the next time that you have a design problem, especially if it's mobile, you consider the field as your first place to go for doing your research and your last place to go. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Emma.